Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, and I am speaking to you from January 4th in the space and time continuum. The sixth vote for the speaker has ended, and there's no movement. Actually, there's backwards movement for Kevin McCarthy. They're going to get back together at 8 o'clock this evening, and I don't know what they're going to do. Supposedly deals are being made, but it doesn't look like it. I want to get into that and cover that and cover a little bit of history, because that's what we do on A Satellite View. We like to look at things from way up high and see what happened in the past and perhaps maybe see where things can go in the future. This speaker vote is pretty distracting, but usually I'm paying a lot of attention and even would have gone down to St. Paul, capital, for the beginning of the state session, where my friend Kelly Morrison got sworn in as a new senator, my new senator, and the DFL putting out a lot of priorities that are very important, that Minnesotans very much want. They're very organized. There are 4 black women, the first black women in our state Senate. Another thing, this whole mess with, what's his name, George Santos. Brazilian authorities intend to prosecute George Santos for fraud now that they know where he is. If he doesn't respond to the charges, he will be tried in absentia and faces up to 5 years in prison in Brazil. Very interesting. The Democratic caucus, led by Hakeem Jeffries, did a great press conference this morning. They're basically reacting to all of this in just the way I hoped they would. And by all of this, I mean this crazy mess that is going on in the Republican Party right now that is preventing any new Congress people from being sworn in, which means the House of Representatives is in a freeze. They can't do anything. They can't appropriate funding for anything. They can't, if your Social Security check doesn't show up, who do you call? It's almost like the government being shut down. It's almost like a government shutdown. It is a partial government pause, and it's not supposed to happen. Nancy Pelosi gavelled out the 117th Congress yesterday morning. And then immediately the 118th Congress begins, and the first thing they do is vote for a speaker. And until they get a speaker in place, nothing else can happen, including nobody can be sworn in. So all the newly elected people right now, there is no representative in your district if you have a newly elected congressperson. You are currently not represented in the House of Representatives. I guess none of us are, because the House of Representatives is in a freeze, is what they call it. They're not allowed to do anything. That's what happens when we put the Republicans in charge. Again, I'm in Minnesota. Huge snowstorm last night and today. The night before last and all of yesterday and pretty much all of last night and this morning. One of the longest heavy snowstorms I remember in my lifetime. I haven't gotten a report on inches, looking just in, at my backyard and our table in the back, more than 12 inches. And I had to dig one of our cars out 3 times, trying to move it. Couldn't get it up the driveway, had to park it on a side street, hoping a plow would come. We have a plow service because our driveway is just too big to shovel or even do a snowblower. we have, these big four-wheel drive, huge pickups with plows. There's a lot of those services around here in Minnesota. They must have had a new guy because our service, they do an incredible job. It's unbelievable because it would be really difficult. Our driveway has kind of a round thing in it, and it's uphill gravel. Very difficult even for them with that equipment to plow. And they must have had a new guy, and he was kind of a young guy, and he seemed like a hothead. I wouldn't want to be his girlfriend kind of guy. And he got his big plow stuck. Never seen any of these guys get these things stuck before. But he got it stuck, and he was doing the wrong thing. If you grow up in Minnesota and you learn about getting stuck in snow, you learn that you do not want to just go and gun it and spin your wheels. You just go deeper in wherever you're stuck. That's what he was doing for a long time. And what ends up happening is you make no movement forward or backward. And that is what has been going on, except a little bit of a backward movement for Kevin McCarthy. The 6 ballots now, and he's gaining no votes. As a matter of fact, he's slowly losing votes. Whereas Hakeem Jeffries has the entire Democratic coalition behind him, all 212 members voting in favor of Hakeem Jeffries, and they're voting consistently and sticking around to do the vote. Hakeem Jeffries is consistently beating Kevin McCarthy in the vote count, but he's not getting the threshold of 218 votes. He's getting 212 votes. McCarthy got 203, then he went down to 202, and now he's down to 201. So there's 21 people currently not voting for him. And it's been consistent. The same 20 people have held out, and then another person voted against him. So Kevin McCarthy losing ground. He's tried everything. He's made deals using a carrot, and then the morning of Tuesday the 3rd, yesterday, the opening of the 118th Congress, he made deals using the stick. Apparently it was a very contentious meeting where there was yelling going on and swearing. He was swearing at the people, his own caucus members, his own, Republican caucus members, and they were getting pretty mad. And apparently he has told more than one person the same promise of, maybe being a chair of a committee. He's pretty much voted everything and the kitchen sink, made a deal for everything and the kitchen sink. So there's really nowhere for him to go, it would seem. And it's just wheels spinning in the snow, going deeper and deeper into the snow so that you're going to have a harder time getting out. Really, there does not seem to be a path. Kevin McCarthy had plenty of time to get ready for this. The last time that there was more than one ballot, the last time that we didn't just have a vote for speaker, takes about 45 minutes. It's all done and we have a Speaker of the House. The last time that didn't happen was in 1923, exactly 100 years ago. Now, you might have heard people talk about the worst time, the most ballots ever, but there were a lot of differences. Now, this is Kevin McCarthy basically being the only viable person running for Speaker. Of course, Hakeem Jeffries is, but it's just not going to happen. The Democrats are in the minority. But Kevin McCarthy can't afford to lose more than 4 votes. He has to get all but 4 votes of his side because he's not going to get any Democratic votes. I think maybe I've heard people talking about that maybe he could, but I'm also hearing that the Democratic caucus is standing very firm behind Hakeem Jeffries, and they're not going to help the Republican Party dig out their big fat pickup with a plow on it out of the snow. Yeah, they got shovels, but they're kind of like what I was doing. I was watching the guy out my window, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to help him. He seems like a hothead kind of guy. Wouldn't want to be his girlfriend. Certainly kind of guy. So yeah, I had a shovel, but I wasn't going to help him. And that's basically what the Democrats are doing right now with for the Republicans watching them spin their tires in the snow. Now, a big difference between what happened in 1856, it was actually the end of 1855. So it was, I think, December 3rd, 1855. It was the 34th Congress. They start voting for their speaker. It ended up going to 133 ballots before they got a speaker. It took 2 solid months of doing nothing but running ballot after ballot after ballot. Now, we've had 2 days of doing that, and it's mind-numbing. But the thing is that in those days, there were about 21 people who threw their hat in the ring to begin with. Now, this is at a time where the Whig Party was breaking up. So everything was in shambles. There wasn't a 2-party system going on because there were more than 2 parties. People were starting new parties like every couple months. The Republican Party was a brand new party. The speaker election, I'll read from this really well-written History, Art, and Archives website. The speaker election that opened the 34th Congress was utter bedlam. The traditional 2-party system that had dominated the House for the previous 2 decades no longer existed, as previous Congresses begrudgingly compromised over slavery. Sectional lines in the House hardened between Northerners and Southerners. Existing party sympathies grew stale, and new issues exacerbated lingering legislative battles. The Whig Party was on life support, and the Democrats had seen their numbers in the House cut nearly in half. In 1854, a protein new group, the American Party, also called the Know-Nothings, captured 51 seats behind a nativist platform, while a fledgling Republican Party hustled to build a workable coalition. Broadly speaking, the House was left with a fractured Democratic Party, a large bloc of know-nothings, and an amorphous opposition party working against the administration of President Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce is a whole nother very interesting story, but we're not going to go into that now. In perhaps a perfect understatement, the Baltimore Sun confessed to its readers on the eve of the 34th Congress, "It is a difficult matter to give the exact political complexion of the House." So an awful lot going on at the time. Now, this is before the Civil War, but only 5 years before the Civil War, basically 6 years. The fight about slavery, what was going on was, we were expanding and adding new states to the United States at the time, and there were big disagreements as to whether those new states would be allowed to have slavery or not. There were big fights going on at that time over that. And that's a big part of what broke the Whig Party up. That's a big part of what broke the Democratic Party up, because you did have some Northern Democrats who were against slavery, but mostly the Democratic Party were the conservatives in the South at that time, and they were pro-slavery. They, of course, kind of started the Civil War trying to keep slavery, primarily. You hear people talk about, oh no, they just wanted to keep their way of living. Well, their way of living couldn't exist without slavery, so okay, you could say that, but it was just a few rich people who ran the biggest plantations who couldn't afford to not have slaves. And I shouldn't say it that way. They can afford to not have slaves, but they can't stay filthy rich without their slaves. So that was a big part of the beginning of the Civil War. We're going to take a break, but we are by no means finished talking about this. So let's take a break and come back and continue on this subject. You're listening to A Satellite View. Satellite View. Todd Mikkelson speaking at you on January 4th, Space and Time Continuum. We are in the midst of the Republican disarray in Washington, D.C., where they have done 6 ballots and made absolutely no movement except a trickle backwards for Kevin McCarthy. It really looks like there's nowhere for him to go. And yesterday, I agreed with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz got up and he nominated Jim Jordan for Speaker of the House. On one of the ballots, I think it was the second ballot, he said, maybe the speakership should not go to somebody who wants it so badly. Now, I said that on AM 950. I might have said it on this show as well. The fact that Kevin McCarthy has been vying for this so hard and he's been expecting to get it, thinking that the moment the Republicans gain back the House, of course, he will just be coronated back in. Now, he was thinking that back in 2015. It didn't work out for him then. That's when Paul Ryan had to come in because he was the only one who had a chance of winning because Kevin McCarthy was not wrangling enough votes. So he stepped aside. Now, this is after John Boehner resigned. The history of Republicans as speakers of the House is interesting. They reigned through the 1920s up until about 1931. Of course, it was that reign of theirs that caused the Depression, the Deep Depression that happened in the 1930s. Then they didn't get the speakership again until 1947, and then they lost it for 2 Congresses. So the last time there was a Republican Speaker of the House before Newt Gingrich was 1955. So then, beginning in 1995, you have Newt Gingrich, a vile, horrible hypocrite who is just in politics for power and nothing else. He got drummed out by the Republican Party because he was overseeing the impeachment of Clinton that was so unpopular that the Republicans lost a lot of seats in that next election. He ended up resigning, and then Dennis Hastert comes in. Dennis Hastert begins in 1999 and goes up until 2007. Guess what he got convicted and spent 15 months in prison for? That's right. Sexual abuse of teenage boys. What is with the Republicans and sexual abuse? And they just keep projecting it, trying to project it onto Democrats, but it's them that actually is carrying it out. Not only was he thrown in jail for sexual abuse of teenage boys, but also in May 2015, Hastert was indicted on federal charges of structuring bank withdrawals to evade bank reporting requirements and making false statements to federal investigators. Federal prosecutors said that the funds withdrawn by Hastert were used as hush money to conceal his past sexual misconduct. Again, another huge story that we're not talking about right now. Talking about the weird history of speakers of the House on the Republican side. Now, in the 110th and 11th, so from 2007 through 2010, Nancy Pelosi becomes the first woman Speaker of the House in the history of the country, and during that time also becomes the most productive Speaker of the House in the history of the United States. Not the most productive woman, the most productive Speaker of the House ever in the history of the United States. Then you get John Boehner, who resigned because it was just too hard. It was too hard. All these guys are mean to me. Oh, these damn Republicans. I thought they were good. I thought the Republican Party was good, but they're so mean to me. He resigned. If you remember, he cried a lot. He resigned, and he was very happy to resign. And then that's when the whole thing with Kevin McCarthy, one of the young guns, along with another young gun, Paul Ryan. Now, the third of 3 young guns got ran out of office when he lost a primary in 2014 in the huge wake of the crazy Tea Party beginning because of the black president they were so angry about the black president that they started the Tea Party. And that's when the crazies got, ramped up even more. And, the Republican Party was trying to be, here's our young guns. And it was Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, and Kevin McCarthy. And two of them are gone. Like I said, Eric Cantor lost a primary to a crazy guy in 2014. And then Paul Ryan ended up just not running again because it was too hard. He was speaker after John Boehner resigned. And then he got voted in the next Congress, but was like, man, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this again. And he left. He just left politics altogether. There goes young gun number 2, the future of the Republican Party falling apart. And now we see Kevin McCarthy, if he does become speaker, which I really think it's very questionable at this point, if there's a path for him at all. If he does become speaker, what is he thinking? His own party has told him that they hate him. So why does he want to be speaker? What's that going to be like? He's probably going to go the same way as John Boehner and Paul Ryan and just be like, this is too hard. Now, the reason McCarthy, he's had a long time. Like I said, he thought he was going to become speaker back in 2015. But he's made all the wrong moves, especially beginning in 2021, 2 weeks after January 6th. He did the right thing right after January 6th, and he said Donald Trump is responsible for the horrible things that happened on January 6th. And then Trump goes, hey, we need to have a talk, Kevin. What are you doing? Come down here. It's nice and warm. He goes down to Mar-a-Lago. Cleaning up my language and imagery of examples of what I say people do. I won't say that he, I can't say what I won't say, right? I can't say it. He basically sucked up to, I'll say, Donald Trump. And of course, if you know me at all, if you've heard me on the radio or on this show, you know that I think it's because virtually all of the Republican Party has had Russian money laundered through their campaigns in 2016. So Donald Trump was there reminding him, Kevin, I told you about this before. I'm gonna have to tell everybody what happened. I'm gonna have to tell them. So he basically comes back and says, "Oh no, January 6th." Kevin McCarthy comes back and he goes, "January 6th was just a fun day. It got a little bit out of hand." So McCarthy empowered the crazies, who are now voting against him. and there's enough of them to make it so that it really, I don't know, it looks impossible for Kevin McCarthy to win the speakership. At this point, it looks, I don't know who else is going to do it. These same 20 people, actually, at least 5 people are so hardcore that I don't think they'll vote for Steve Scalise or Stefanik or anybody else because everybody else is trying to urge everyone to vote for McCarthy. And they're so anti-McCarthy, I don't see them supporting anybody who supported McCarthy. They're getting more and more angry at him, calling him out, calling him a fraud. I mean, these are the things, I find myself agreeing with Matt Gaetz and even Lauren Boebert was kind of saying some things I agreed with because she was going after Kevin McCarthy. So Kevin McCarthy then embracing Trump and now seeing that Trump is basically losing support. The fact that Trump, that's another thing. This morning, Trump puts out, so, it was looking like he endorsed Kevin McCarthy. It was looking like he was no longer going to endorse Kevin McCarthy. And then apparently Kevin McCarthy calls him last night. So then Trump puts out on his Truth Social BS Twitter page, some really good conversations took place last night, and it's now time for all of our great Republican House members to vote for Kevin, close the deal, take the victory and watch crazy Nancy Pelosi fly back home to a very broken California, the only speaker in U.S. history to have lost the House twice. Republicans, do not turn a great triumph into a giant and embarrassing defeat. It's time to celebrate. You deserve it. Kevin McCarthy will do a good job and maybe even a great job. Just watch. And then more votes were lost. That actually maybe was part of the cause for Kevin McCarthy to lose even more votes today than he had yesterday. So Trump is not the most sexy Republican anymore, apparently. He's not helping Kevin McCarthy at the very least. And then Boebert and Gates, they were holding McCarthy hostage until late Monday night, the night before the vote began. They all went in and asked for chairmanships, but they were the same chairmanships that Marjorie Taylor Greene was promised by Kevin. So Kevin told them, no, I already promised that to somebody. That's when Boebert turned on him. I think Gates was already turned on him, but that's when Boebert said, this is BS. I'm voting for anyone but Kevin McCarthy. She became a never McCarthy-er. And, she and Margaret friends a while back? But so now they're enemies. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think today, said, I found out, or maybe it was yesterday, I found out that they went in and asked for things. Nobody got anything for me. Nobody asked anything for me. And they were asking for the same things that I was supposed to get. So this is where the Republican Party is at. They're not like, I want to do the best job I can for the United States and for the people and for Americans. Now, on the other hand, you've heard the term Dems in disarray. That was just more projection by the Republican Party, because it's definitely Dems in array and have been for at least 2 solid years. Nancy Pelosi wrangled them very well. Now, it's really rich that Donald Trump accuses Nancy Pelosi of losing the House twice. She was Speaker twice. That doesn't mean she lost the House twice. She was the most productive Speaker of the House, even back in the aughts when she was first Speaker of the House. And then now in these last 2 years, again, extremely productive Congress that Nancy Pelosi oversaw, and she brought the Dems into more array than the Dems have been in, certainly in my lifetime. Democrats are stronger now than they have been at least since the 1970s. They're sticking together. Their messaging is right on. The press conference this morning, they were saying, hey, we were really productive in the last Congress, and now we still want to keep going. We did this and this and this, and now we would like to do this and this and this for the American people. But we can't, because the Republicans are completely dysfunctional. That's what the Democrats need to keep doing every time a microphone's in their face. And that's what they began doing, and that's what they are doing now. So it's very interesting times, very interesting times. Kevin McCarthy now gave away this whole non-confidence vote, what is it called, motion to vacate. He went down so that one person can file a motion to vacate the speakership. I predict that if he gets to be Speaker, Republicans are going to be making that motion daily. So why does he even still want to be Speaker anymore? It's just incredible. There's more to talk about this. Maybe we'll have to take another break and come back. You're listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. And we're back on A Satellite View. Todd Mikkelson coming at you. We've been talking about the speakership, the vote going on, and how the Republicans are unable to vote for a Speaker of the House and putting the Congress, the House of Representatives, in a freeze pattern. John Boehner was the worst Speaker of the House probably in the history of the United States up until Paul Ryan. who then beat him out on that. Absolutely no control over the Republican caucus. Absolutely no control. This is why both guys, we said in the last segment, this is why both guys basically resigned. John Boehner actually resigned and interrupted his tenure and left. Paul Ryan effectively resigned by just not running for re-election, completely left Washington, D.C., even though he was one of the young guns, the future of the Republican Party. Sexy young gun. There were 3 young guns, 2 of them are gone, and Kevin McCarthy is the last young gun. And he's the dumbest leader. Thankfully, he's not been the worst speaker, at least yet. If he wins the speakership, if he becomes speaker, I can tell you for absolutely sure that he will be the worst Speaker of the House. He will have absolutely no control over his caucus. He already does not have control over his caucus. He's already made promises that he doesn't want to keep. He's made promises that he knows are horrible ideas. In my last episode, where it was Casey Kasem's countdown of the top 6 things the Republicans are planning on doing to lose in 2024, even worse than they've lost ever before. Something to that effect. If you just listen to more of my podcasts, the one that was just released last week is that. And it talks about Kevin McCarthy's really dumb page that he put out that's talking about what the Republicans are going to do. And all it is basically, we're going to investigate the investigators. We're going to investigate the January 6th, investigation. We're going to investigate Hunter Biden's laptop, which now we know basically really only turned up naked pictures of Hunter Biden on Twitter. Again, a whole nother subject. But Kevin McCarthy is being led into those things. He's not a leader. He's not leading the Republican Party into doing those things. These crazies, Jim Jordan and the even craziers than Jim Jordan, are leading Kevin McCarthy into that. The only reason Jim Jordan is voting right now for Kevin McCarthy in all of these, so far, 6 ballots is because he was promised, judiciary chairmanship, because he wants to investigate. So we're just going to have a whole lot of Jim Jordan. I'm just going to no. I'm speaking. I'm talking. Don't talk over me. I'm not talking over you. You're talking. No, I'm not talking over you. You're talking over me. Claim back my time. Claim back my time. Why did you? I can't remember what I was going to ask anymore. I can't even remember what we're talking about. I can't remember where I'm going. I have no morals. I have no moral compass. I have no direction. I have no beliefs. I'm just here because I want to be on TV and I want to be yelling like this and I want to show off my collection of yellow ties. That's basically what's going to be happening in the House of Representatives for the next 2 years. Unless the only other guy who has a chance of actually gaining enough votes to win, Hakeem Jeffries, becomes Speaker of the House. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. He is of the minority party, and I don't believe that's ever happened. I'm 98% sure that it's never happened where the Speaker of the House is from the minority party. It kind of seems like it wouldn't be fair because, yes, the people did vote for these people. Now, there are a lot of arguments to be made about why the Republicans have any power right now, and a lot of it has to do with gerrymandering. The Republicans would not have a majority in the House of Representatives. I mean, they went through a period where they were out for 40 years. The Republicans have not held the majority in the House really all that often in the last 100 years. I would say at least since, in the 1990s. So let's say the speakers in the 1990s, which were the ones right before John Boehner and Paul Ryan in the early aughts, they would not have been speakers of the House. I don't think that the Republicans would have been able to gain a majority in the House had it not been for gerrymandering and a lot of other types of cheating. But they are voted in. We do have our rules. We have to stick to them. The people have chosen for the Republican Party to be the majority party in the House of Representatives. So it does make sense that the Speaker of the House should be a Republican. Now, Hakeem Jeffries, of course, is getting 212 votes. That's only 5 short 6 short from the majority of the votes. And he's getting consistently 10, 11, 12 votes more than anyone else. So he's winning the popular vote. He's just not getting the majority, which the rules say if there's 434 people voting, which there are, then 218 votes need to be achieved before a Speaker of the House can be called. Now, Kevin McCarthy's down to 201. Hakeem Jeffries, each of the 6 ballots has gotten 212. He really has the best chance right now. Like I was saying before, I don't think that any of these 20 hardcore anti-Kevin McCarthy people are going to go for a Steve Scalise, because Steve Scalise has been heavily supporting Kevin McCarthy. I just don't see anyone else being able to do it. If Kevin McCarthy can't do it, the guy who's been working on it for years, many years, if he can't do it, who else is going to do it? And he's given them everything. There's nothing else for anyone else to come in and give away. Like I said, he started talking to them, these 5 crazy people that's now turned into 21 absolutely anti-Kevin McCarthy people. He said, okay, you can vote me out. Vote me in so you can vote me out. I will let you vote me out. That's this whole motion to vacate, which there have been rules about before. The rules used to be that it was basically the majority of a caucus. Okay, that kind of makes sense. It's basically a vote of no confidence, right? If half of your caucus doesn't believe in your own party's speaker, well, then I think that's, you recall the speaker. You vote no confidence. You make the motion to vacate the speakership. And that was Kevin McCarthy's red line. He was not going to give that up, but he gave that up a few weeks ago. And now today it sounds like he gave it, it was down to 5. You have to have at least 5 people in the majority party calling for a motion to vacate. There has to be 5 people that agree, we need to do the motion to vacate. That's what he got down to a couple weeks ago, which also is pretty crazy. Now he said, okay, it can go down to just one person. Just one person can just say, I motion to vacate. I have no confidence in the speaker. I want to, and then what? But again, I would speculate that these people are so pissed off and crazy right now that I think they would do that every day, once a day. They would just start every House floor session saying, I want to make a motion to vacate. And then the whole Congress has to mess with that. Again, nothing getting done for the American people or the country. And then what if that is successful and then Kevin McCarthy is thrown out of the speakership? Then what do? Do they hold ballots to vote for a new speaker again? And then who's going to get the majority votes then? What is the plan here, Republicans? You wanted the power. You got the power. What's the plan? I mean, both parties have invested time in building a coalition. The Republicans, this is the coalition they've built, a coalition of no coalition. It is very much like 1855 and 6, where although there's not an actual official party that's been announced, like the Know Nothings became an actual party back then, and the Republicans became an actual party back then. So that was basically splitting the Whig Party into 3 parts. The Democratic Party was split, but they didn't actually start a new party. And that's what's going on, basically, with the Republicans. It's like there's 2 different parties. It's like Matt Gaetz is the leader of a party. Now, of course, he can only get 20 people in his party, but right now, he's holding the whole Congress hostage with those 20 people. And we're in a deadlock to vote for the speakership because nobody can get more than half the votes in Congress. And it's because the Republicans are broken up. They have essentially gone the way of the Whigs. Now, the Democrats, they've been building a coalition too. They've invested a lot of time into building a coalition, and that's why all 212 members keep consistently voting for Hakeem Jeffries. So far, we've had 6 ballots, and every single one of them, Hakeem Jeffries gets 100% of the members of the Democratic House caucus. The Democrats are sticking together. That's how we passed all this great legislation over the last 2 years. Dems in array. Here's another thing that happened. Chip Roy, one of the crazies, one of the 20 crazies, he got up and nominated Jim Jordan, gave a speech and said, we need somebody to lead. Kevin McCarthy's not a leader. We need a real leader. The real guy who can really lead is Jim Jordan. So they do a couple ballots with Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan gets 20 votes. So then this morning, again, Chip Roy, he's a representative from Texas who is absolutely crazy, go nuts. He stood up and nominated a guy named Byron Donalds, who nobody really knows who he is. He's a brand new guy. I think he won in 2020, but he hasn't done any legislation or made a name for himself or anything. I think part of the reason he did it was because Byron Donald is black. So, of course, Chip Roy says, yeah, it's a historic. We got 2 black guys running, Hakeem Jeffries and Byron Donald. But he says, Byron Donald is the guy. Well, yesterday, Jim Jordan was the guy. But now Byron Donald, he's the guy. He's the guy. I know I said somebody else was the guy yesterday, but I don't know. I was wrong. The Republicans consistently do this. They consistently contradict themselves. And also, they're the party who keeps talking about crime. Kevin McCarthy's town of Bakersfield, California, has one of the largest crime rate, the biggest crime rates in the country. Is it projection again? Anyway, well, you can see we could talk about this for all the livelong day. They're going to get together again tonight at 8 o'clock, but we're running out of time. Todd Mikkelson with a satellite view. Gotta go. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.